Like I said, I'm gonna put off the stride and see.
Will you do that, Frank?
What can I say about True Detective's second season? Would it live up to the first? Would the storytelling be as exquisite and tidy once again? Well, it was never going to be, and if you expected that, you would have left this season being highly disappointed. The problem is, even if you didn't expect the same quality, you still probably felt let down by this second season. For me, the show fell massively short of the standards set by Marty and Rust. That's not to say it's bad, it's not at all. The story is just nowhere near as engaging or interesting this second time around. The whole season revolves around the murder of Vinci city manager Ben Casper. Casper was holding money, and a lot of money at that, for former mobster turned casino owner Frank Semyon. Frank was looking to go legit, building the land around California in hope of securing his legacy. And now after his city manager, the face for this new development, is killed whilst holding his millions, he looked to police detective Ray Velcoro to track the killer down and help him get his money back. Now this season is packed full of high caliber actors. Colin Farrell playing Velcoro is a broken shell of his former self. He is by and large ahead of the pack in terms of performances, and after going to Frank for help regarding a personal matter, he has been indebted to the man for years and gives him information whenever he requires it. I actually found their dynamic to be the most interesting part of the show, especially when it became tested. Vince Vaughn tends to get typecast a lot, which is a shame because I will say he turned out to be one of my favourite characters. His villainous side was fun to watch. He was intimidating. Granted, his dialogue was a little bit elegant at times, but when either alone or with his wife, he aired authority, and he looked like a man that you would not want to cross. And I gotta give him credit, Vince Vaughn for me did really well with his character. He didn't see himself as the bad guy or a mobster, in fact he hates that word. He believed on becoming truly legit, but because of other parties of interest meddling and because of the murder of his city manager, he was forced to slip back into some old habits. Frank stepped on toes trying to claw some money back, all whilst making subtle threats establishing that he meant business. And one of the best scenes all season long was at his dinner table when he was having his heated discussion with Ray. Both of them having guns on one another had us wondering if either were going to fire. Ray was a loose cannon at this stage and beyond any rationalisation, but cool heads prevailed, and I'm sure glad they did, because their team up in the finale proved that they could be an awesome duo. That was if they weren't at each other's throats. So, Ray's partners, Bezarides and Woodrow combined, the three were tasked with finding out who killed Casper. McAdams as Bezarides was cold, steely, prickly, and out of the three, easily the most unlikable. She grew on me as the season went on though, but Taylor Kitsch's Woodrow really was genuinely the good guy at the table. He had his own demons like anybody else, but when in combat he was, as Ray quite rightly put it, he became a god warrior. He saved both of his partners' lives in that horrific shootout, and he beat 5 men at once who were ready to off him on a moment's notice. And that was why his death hurt. Being shot in the back after being so close to getting away robbed him of his future with his unborn child. I was angry at his death and shocked because I really wanted him to make it out. I think we all knew at least one of our main characters were going to die by the end, even before Woodrow was killed in the penultimate episode. But in the end, Bezarides, the character who I cared least about, wound up being the only one surviving. 3 out of 4 of our main characters didn't make it, which is ballsy from the writing team. Ray went out in a final blaze of glory as we learnt that his son was actually his. And that was nice, even if the show went far out of its way to make us believe he was never going to be. But I was a bit gutted Frank wasn't able to make it out. Aside from Ray, who I probably put on an equal pedestal, I liked him more than most of the others. His goodbye with him seeing visions, one with his wife in the desert, was an emotional end and one of Vaughn's strongest scenes. But I will admit I did feel a little bitter about the ending. Not because the bad guys won, that doesn't happen enough in TV nowadays, but I just don't know, it didn't sit all well with me. It was a bit like, meh, oh well, that was a bit anticlimactic. For me, Season 2 fell way short from the quality of Season 1, and whilst engaging at times, it began to feel very ordinary and generic. It was still a good show and worth watching, but Season 1 is, and probably will remain, the season to beat. My overall verdict for Season 2 of True Detective is a high 7 out of 10. It is an average season with some above average actors. In fairness to this season, before it started, it did have its back against the wall. It had huge shoes to fill from Marty and Rust's outing, and it would have been a mountain to climb for them to even come anywhere close to that summit. Perhaps that's why this season was a bit of a letdown. Again, as I've said, it isn't bad, not even close. The problem was, it just didn't help this season was really slow to get going. The story was mediocre. Just think, the entire season's 8 episodes revolved around finding out who murdered a city manager you see for all of a few minutes. Saying it like that, it doesn't sound all that appealing, does it? And as well, most of the characters in the show didn't warrant us to invest in them. By the time I cared, it was like episode 7, Woodrow was killed, and that did hurt. But thinking back, if he was killed a couple of episodes before it, I probably wouldn't have cared so much. I felt the season did a poor job in allowing us to invest in the good guys, which is why I found myself rooting for Frank more than most of the others. Now, the show does improve steadily as the episodes go by. Episode 7, the penultimate episode, was the standout, which was capped off by that shocking and sad death of Woodrow. And Ray was right, Woodrow deserved better. The finale was good too, very good in fact, and it felt close to being 2 episodes in one with its 90-minute runtime. And I cannot fail to mention the horrific shootout sequence around mid-season. That was a very well done sequence, capturing the horror that was engulfing the streets. But the main thing that stood out for me were the performances from some of the actors. Both Colin Farrell and Vince Vaughn are my 2 favourite picks. Farrell was able to capture the desperation and the burnt-out personality of Velcoro. He was an aggressive man with a short temper, and they tried to fake us out by believing Velcoro was killed at the end of episode 2. I wasn't having any of it. There was no blood for starters, so I think that scene was done intentionally to try and surprise some viewers. There were non-lethal riot shells used. He came away with some bumps and bruises, mind you, but ultimately he was alive. And his near-death experience seemed to reignite a fire that was inside of him. He wanted a custody battle for his son, even knowing deep down he would have to cheat if he wanted to win. His meltdown was pretty funny to watch, and then what followed was a teary handing over the towel, as it were, accepting that he was gonna lose. He just didn't want the paternity test results revealed to his son, regardless of the outcome. You began to feel for the guy, you really did, and by the end you knew Ray was a man who was never intent on running. He had one last stand and went out on his own terms. And for True Detective Season 2, crime, corruption and human greed won at the end of the day. And although it was slow to get going, the second season improved towards its end to provide an above average cop drama that is worth watching. There's plenty of better stuff out there, but just remember the first few episodes are the weakest, so the more you watch it, the better it will get. Let me know what you think. That'll do it for me. What did you guys think for the second season of True Detective? And are you in agreement with me? Did you like the ending? Did you feel that the show was average or even just above average at best? And out of the 4 main characters, Ray, Woodrow, Bezarides and Frank, who did you want to see make it out? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Please leave a like, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed the review. And I'll see you on the next one.
You stopped moving way back there.